Hi, I'm Chris Hill, and today's video is going to be on how to correct a stabilizer extension or a front rod that is out of alignment with the rest of the bow and to get it into line. Sometimes from the factories they come and they just aren't straight. The end cap is just glued on, and sometimes the stab will move or in the production process and it just won't line up. I've been really hesitant to do this video for a long time because a lot of archers don't know if their bow is on plane or not. It's a difficult concept to try to dial in and tune into your bow, and I didn't want to teach something that would have people changing their stab position when maybe the stabilizers were truly straight and it was just the bow wasn't on plane, instead of them thinking the bow was on plane and the stabilizers were crooked. But having said that, there's a recent topic on Archery Talk talking about how to correct this when the front stab just isn't straight, and so that's what we're going to do with this video tonight. The first real thing to do is to make sure, once you're on plane, that you know which part of the stabilizer system isn't straight. Now, if you don't know what on plane is, please refer to the two tuning videos that I've got, especially the first tuning video. It explains what on plane is and how to find that for your bow. I'm going to be referencing my bow, my gold bow, my backup blue bow, and my wife's bow, and maybe even Drew's future bow to show. Once you get a stabilizer system set up that is straight, then on future bows or future tunes, you can use that as a reference to set your on plane. I wouldn't recommend using it as a reference before you know that. Just lining up the string and everything to a stabilizer system with all the components, the bolt, the V-bar, the extension, the long rod, could be asking for a mess and disaster. So the first thing to do is to find out what exactly is straight. And so I take all the stabilizers off the bow and I put on just the long rod and I view it to see if it's straight. So we'll do that with this stabilizer here and my son's bow. So let me get this on. This is going to take a little bit because it's a lot of taking stabilizers on and off, and it's not so quick, or I'm not so quick to do that. Now, I don't have a system to actually hold the bow, so I just have to kind of hold it and see, but we'll see if we can see where the stabilizer is on this. And that one is in line. See, can I get it there? There it is. There. So this is actually lined up with the stabilizer. Now the next thing I would do is I'd take this off and I would add just the extension to it. And I see if that's crooked and it's not in alignment, then I know that the extension isn't straight. If I can do the extension and the long rod and they're both still straight, then I'll add the bolt. If that's still straight, then I'll add the V-bar. So a lot of times the little bitty bolt adapter, those things aren't straight, and that will skew your front rod. So your front rod's really straight, but the bolt is. It does happen that extensions are crooked. This is an extension that I bought, and it's crooked to the left. I just haven't bothered to fix it yet. And this is another extension that I have, and it's crooked slightly to the right, and I just haven't bothered to fix it yet. So if I put those on this front rod with this bow, it will skew the stabilizer. But for the time being, and for trying to be speedy with the video, here we have my gold bow, and you can see that it's lined up. I don't know if you can see the little holes on the riser with the string, but it's lined up, and this is the stabilizer from my blue bow. So what we're going to do is we're going to do blue bow next. Really quick, we'll swap these two out, and then I'm going to swap out the stabilizers from these two bows. So we're going to switch. We'll put this one up. We'll put this here. And we'll see if we can get this so the camera can see. Let's see if I got that. It's hard to see with the camera. Ooh, right in there. And there you go. So that's the blue bow stabilizer, all tuned in on plane, lined up. So now let's swap out the stabilizers, just the front rods, and they should be lined up. So here it is. This is the blue bow front rod. the gold bow front rod on the blue bow. And we'll see if we can show that there. There you are. I think that's it. Yes. And then now, let's go ahead and we'll put this down. And we'll go to putting the blue bow stabilizer on the gold bow. And this is a really good, easy way to reference if your stabilizers and everything are straight. And I think that's going to be pretty close. It's hard to see on the phone. Let me get back here and take a look. Yep, that should show it. So there's two bows, independent. Swap the front stabilizers. So now let's take this stabilizer off, and we're going to put it on my wife's bow, and we'll see where we line up. So now we'll see what we get. There we are. That should be lined up. Yep, and it's right on the money. And so now we can do the same thing with the blue bow stabilizer. I'll put it on her bow. And put that down here. And we'll just put this one on here and see if this lines up. So now I know that all three extensions, V-bar, bolts, and front rods on these three bows are all straight and centered. And they all work and they're all interchangeable. Now, the issue comes in if I take these out, because these are mine and I know mine are straight. And I know now her extension is straight and all her bolts, because my stabilizers line up. If I take her stabilizer and put it on, it's not straight. Let me see where I'm at here. Yeah, you should be able to see that if I line it up, it's on the inside. The actual stabilizer is pointing over to the left. And if I put in Drew's stabilizer, which is a different long rod, and I know it's slightly off as well, because I put it up on my bow, it's going to be off on her bow too. And so it's off on his bow, but his bow doesn't line up, so I'm not really worried about it at all. And then let me see where we're at here. Let's see. And you can see that it's also pointing quite to the left when I line up the lines. So if you actually lined up this bow to where the stabilizer was, you'd have the string too much to the left. So it's slightly out. So we're going to look at what to do to correct this stabilizer and get it back. So I'm going to pause for a second, get reset up, and we're going to correct these bows. As an added check, I put my wife's stabilizer, which is off to the left, on my blue bow and lined everything up, and you can still see that the stabilizer is not pointing dead center. It's slightly to the left. And also the stabilizer of Drew's bow will be the same. Now, this is not really saying that these brands are good, bad. I've had this happen with Easton Contours. I've had it with the MK Korea. I've had it with Fiber Bow. I've had it with HMCs in my Joad. I can't tell you how many HMC and HMC pluses that I did. All right, so it's nothing bad on the company. It's just part of just manufacturing. So here again, here's the Drew's riser on my bow, and the stabilizer is pointing off to the left. It's not straight, but we know the extension everything is. So both of these are pointing to the left. So now we're going to set up to fix these. So what we're going to do is we're going to heat the end cap up and remove it, clean out the glue, reglue it, put the end cap back on, and then we're going to line it up with the bow and then let it dry. Now, this is just like removing an arrow point from a carbon arrow. Most stabilizers, if there's any carbon in it, you don't want to get the carbon too hot or burn it. You want to just heat the end cap. Sometimes the glue and the smell can be a little bit, so you might want to keep that into consideration too. But let's see what we got here. Let's do that. So we're going to just heat this up. I have a glass of water ready to take the end cap once it's loose. All I do is I just keep moving it. I don't want to damage any of the carbon of the stabilizer shaft, but this is basically just like an arrow and an arrow point. You don't have to be too worried about really destroying it. Most of the time there's not even really any discoloration whatsoever. So just keep turning it around. I'll take something that goes in. See there? See how it's turning already? It's coming loose. And there we are. And it's come out. And usually I clean the inside as well. And I dry it really good. Alright, so there's the stabilizer end cap. And now we're going to get the end cap. It should be okay to handle in the water. And then usually what I want to do is I want to make sure there isn't any glue build-up in the cylinder that will make the stabilizer kind of go off center, or it doesn't want to go straight back in, so that I got room to move it around and get it lined up. Most any two mix epoxy will work. I use JB Weld, but most any of them will work, especially the ones that say they're good for up to 2,000 pounds or something. The recoil and shock absorbing isn't going to really affect, and it's not going to work its way out. I've never had any kid come up with the stabilizer and say, my stabilizer came unglued or worked its way out or anything of that nature. So now we're going to get set up and try to glue it and get everything ready to go. Now usually I'll do a dry fit first, and I'll make sure I'll do a kind of a dry fit alignment to know where I want to go. Okay, so there's a couple things I do with the setup. First, I make sure that the end of the stabilizer is clean. There's no glue residue left over it. Sometimes you might take a little tiny bit of sandpaper. I do the same thing inside the end cap. I want to make it so that I can put the two pieces back together fairly smoothly. It should be snug. It shouldn't be too loose, but you don't want it where you're trying to crank it, jam it in there either. I borrow my wife's weight, and I use it, since there's no front rod on the front, to hold the bow up. So a weight works good here, and I use the other weight to, once I position it, put it in position, when it's going to glue to dry. I have my JB Weld. I put a couple pieces of paper down so that nothing gets on it. And I'm going to mix this up. And I just apply it just around the edge. You don't have to coat the whole part because it's such a slim space in between. It's going to push glue out to the end. All right. And you want to make sure that it's all the way down. And I get a tissue, clean off any excess glue. And now I'm going to check the alignment, and that is right on the money. So let's see if you can see that. It's right on the money. And so this time I don't even have to really set a weight to keep it wedged in place. It kind of just went right there. You can see it's right on the money now. So now I'll let this dry. I'll let it sit for 24 hours. And tomorrow I'll take the stabilizer off. I'll screw it back on. I'll check it again and make sure that it's in the right spot. And give this time. This JB weld dries pretty quick, but I just, for my own peace of mind, I like letting it just sit for 24 hours. And my wife doesn't mind that I use the kitchen counter for that long. But that looks on the money. That is big time on the money. All right, so when I'm going to heat up the MKXR, it doesn't really have a hole for me to use as a reference to when it's heated up. So what I'll do is I'll heat this up, and then I'll drape like a washcloth over it, and then I'll grab it with pliers like this, and I'll turn that to get the end cap off. And that's what I'll do for this. Okay, so here we are with the second stabilizer that's Drew's, that was pointing off a little bit to the left. This one I've taken the end cap off, sanded, re-glued, put it back in place. This one needed a little bit more prodding, so I've nudged it over and put a weight at the end, and I have a weight on the back to kind of keep it at the angle that I want. And I'm going to leave that to dry for 24 hours as well. And then this one will also be straight, and then that can be used on any of the bows, whether it's Drew's, my wife, or mine, it will be straight. So I think you can see that. And that is how you do it. And it'll come out looking pretty much just like from the factory tomorrow morning. It'll be on plane and set. But again, be careful. Make sure that you are truly on plane. Your bow is truly set up and it's centered before you re-glue a stabilizer or an extension. I'd hate to think that I did this for people and they messed up their gear. That would just be not what I'm wanting out of this. But if you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and thanks for watching.